the Biopalma coordinator for the Eastern and Southern African region. And it's a great pleasure to be with you here this afternoon and just tell you a little bit more about what we are specifically doing in the Eastern and Southern African region. Okay, for the Biopalma Program. And to start us off is my colleague Roxana. She'll give us a brief introduction to the program as a whole, and then I'll continue with the region-specific stuff. Oh, Ruchia? I have. There we go. There we go. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Christine. Welcome everyone to this session. I will give you just a brief snapshot of the Biopalma program. This session is about Eastern and Southern Africa, but the Biopalma program works in 79 countries of Africa, the Caribbean and the Pacific. The Biopalma program is aiming at improving the management and governance of protected and conserved areas and their system in these 79 countries of the African, Caribbean and the Pacific. It is implemented jointly by IUCN and the Joint Research Center of the European Commission. It is an initiative of the Organization of African, Caribbean and Pacific States financed by the European Union. And through this program we really aim at, on one hand, having well-managed and well-governed protected areas across these regions that ultimately contribute to improving decision-making at all the levels, from the site level to the national level and international. This is really relevant for our work, especially in the current context of the post-2020 biodiversity framework, where the new Target 3, you might have all seen it, concerns well-connected, representative, etc., systems of protected areas. The Biopalma program is really a tool and to achieve that target. So this is an invitation to all of you to connect with the Biopalma program and see what's in it for each of you, because the stakeholders of the program is really everyone who is concerned by conservation, from local communities to international decision makers. My colleagues will talk about everything that is on this slide. This is just an attempt to explain Biopalma simply. So we have three components: the action component, the groundmaking facility, and then the regional observatories, which are the regional hubs for protected area, knowledge, data, products. As you can see here, we have some knowledge products that are produced with the Biopalma program, and a lot of good results from the implementation of the action component. But more on this in the following presentations. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Roxana. Okay, so that just gave you a brief overview of, let me go onto this side, brief overview of the program as a whole. And as Roxana said, it does, it's active in 4 regions, and we're talking now about the Eastern and Southern African region, just one of those regions. And just to sort of reinforce what Roxana has just shown you, these are the components that we are dealing with. And essentially it is a bit of a circular flow, you could say. And it doesn't really matter where you start, but we have the Regional Resource Hub, which is in Eastern Southern Africa. That's what we call the observatory. It's called the Regional Resource Hub, and it's hosted by the Regional Center for the Mapping of Resources for Development, RCMRD, based in Nairobi. And they essentially are working with all the countries in the region to try and collate the most up-to-date data around protected areas, assessments that have been done, governance, etc., etc. And then out of that information, on a regular basis, we produce knowledge products. We published the State of Protected and Conserved Areas in November last year. I'll talk a little bit more about that just now. But so then we have the knowledge products, and the knowledge products then move on to inform both policy development and policy changes, as well as then action on the ground. So in the form of the action component, the grant-making mechanism that Biopalma is also supporting. And then from the activities, again, there's regular sort of assessment of progress. So we're trying to sort of see, are our activities, is what we're doing making a difference? And to do that, we need to also assess where we are in the process. And that's where, again, the observatory hosts a number of tools that are available for, in particular, management effectiveness assessments, but also governance assessments. Yeah, so that's just, again, to give you a bit of a sense of how that flow is. And then underpinning it all is essentially the capacity building program. And I'll speak to each of these in a little bit more detail now. In fact, I'm hopefully not going to speak all that much. I've got colleagues that are unfortunately not here today, but they have provided us with their input. So as Roxana was saying, the program lives with all the stakeholders that are part of this work. And so we've tried as much as possible to have hear their voices today. And you will be hearing from some of our stakeholders. And I hope to keep my contribution quite short. But just to let you know, the state of protected and conserved areas for Eastern and Southern Africa was published, as I mentioned, in November last year. It was launched also at the launch of the regional observatory. And it essentially just gives a bit of a snapshot, status quo or baseline, if you will, of where we are at in terms of protected areas. And it was looking at a number of different aspects. I'll just move to the next. So it was looking at management effectiveness, how well are we doing? It was looking at coverage of protected areas. It was looking at governance, what are the governance models that are active in the region, and also looking into financing. How are our protected areas financed? Where are the gaps? What are the gaps? So there's a lot of information and analysis in this report, and I would encourage you, if you haven't yet seen it or read it, we have cards on the back of the pavilion with QR codes, so you can download the publication there if you're interested. And you'll see a lot of these. I've just taken a few snapshots of graphs of some of the analysis that's gone on here. And then at the end, there's a recommendation section, which really was just pulling together, and it's not really rocket science, it's not necessarily new things, but it is now with a foundation of data and information that was collated. And the recommendations essentially are around increasing sustainable financing, diversifying financing for protected areas, diversifying governance models, collaborating across borders, transboundary protected areas. Both in SADC, there is already a big program. In East Africa, it's developing at the moment. And then addressing gaps in coverage of ecosystems that are protected, as well as the assessments to really see where we are in progress in terms of well-managed and equitably managed protected areas. And then obviously as well as capacity. There's capacity needs still across the board on various different topics, and that is detailed a little bit more in the report as well. But this is literally just to give you a bit of a snapshot, so I would encourage you to try and get a copy. It's downloadable. Okay, and so the next segment here, as I mentioned, so from the knowledge products, these feed into both the sort of policy level decision making, but also inform where the priorities for action are on the ground. And for this section, we have two stakeholders that have contributed, and we'll tell you a little bit more about how they are engaging with the regional reference information system, the regional observatory, as well as then also the knowledge products, and what they are hoping to do in conjunction with the regional resource hub. So let's hope this video plays and you get the sound too.
I'm honored to present to you today about our collaboration with the other partners, like RCMRD, in the information and data, especially in the role of the regional resource hub in the region. So I just want to give you a very brief about the Lake Victoria Basin. It's a second largest freshwater lake in the world and the first in Africa. And you can see the water is sharing by 3 partner states. Kenya having 6%, Uganda 43%, and Tanzania 51%. With this initiative, we have done, I will present what tools have we developed with the RCMRD, and currently I would just want to mention that under this program on the transboundary conservation and management of transboundary capital in East Africa, financed by USAID and also supported by BIOPAMA with other partners, we are developing a tool called Ecological Mapping and Monitoring Tool for Transboundary Ecosystem Management in East Africa. The purpose is to conserve and manage these critical transboundary resources, to have information that can inform the policy decision on the status of these ecosystems and what tools or framework can be established for the joint management. Therefore, this tool, as I said, it will be in line with the agreed work plan with the East African community, BIOPAMA and IUCN, working with the Joint Research Center of the European Commission and the RCMRD. And the tool will be a design, we will design a system of framework for collection of data and information for effective understanding of the ecosystem processes and dynamics, because this is very important. As I said, that the region is very endowed with this biodiversity and the transboundary in nature, sharing between countries. Therefore, it is important to understand what is existing and what the changes are happening. And this will also help in the wide management of these resources. And again, for LVBC, as the regional institution for advising the sustainability of these resources, will be able to inform the policymakers and even to formulate strategies for the joint management of these resources. Therefore, the regional resource hub, it will be a critical place that this information will be also stored and will be able to access and also be accessible with other partners in the region. And I just want to show you just briefly the areas that have been prioritized for the ecological mapping and monitoring tool in the region. Therefore, we have identified like 7 areas. The Kidepo Valley National Park and the Kidepo Game Reserve between Uganda and South Sudan. We have Great Virunga Landscape between Uganda and Rwanda. Serengeti Mara ecosystem between Kenya and Tanzania, Savo Mkomanzi ecosystem between Kenya and Tanzania, Rungwe Kibira, Nyungwe Kibira, Rwanda and Burundi, Takanyaru, Rueru Akagera, Chohoa Ruhinda, and the Kanzigiri complex between Rwanda and Burundi. In conclusion, I can say that the tool that we are about to develop will provide information to support field interventions and policy dialogues for fair and effective management and governance of critical transboundary resources. As I said, that most of the time shared resources, they are not easy because of the competing interests. If we have information and data, we'll be in a better position to inform the decision and even the strategies for management. Therefore, the information that will be collected under this tool, it will also add into our resource hub, into the regional resource hub, and advise in the requirement for the protection and conservation of the areas in East African community.
Okay, so that was just a bit of a flavor of one of the regional economic communities that we work with in the Eastern and Southern African region, and how they want to interact with the regional resource hub. And maybe just to say that we're currently working with them on or the RCMRD, the host of the observatory, is working with them on a pilot in the Serengeti Mara ecosystem for this EMMT tool. And then the other part that I mentioned earlier then goes towards, hang on, there we go, is about how information informs activities on the ground. And so this also leads into the granting mechanism that is active under BIOPAMA, the action component. And so, again, we have one of our grantees. We have over 50 grants in the region at the moment, but just one of our grantees, just an example, a bit of a flavor of how they are benefiting and also how they are using information to inform their management. So we'll hear from Old Pejeta in Kenya.
A 365 square kilometer property that mainly deals with wildlife conservation, community development, as well as other enterprises. It is a system that is complex in the sense that we are conserving some of the most iconic endangered species in this part of the world. Opegeta, in that sense, relies quite heavily on scientifically collected data to be able to make decisions on wildlife management, as well as interventions that are required to rescue some of the populations that are locally or critically endangered globally. We are really grateful to IUCN through the action component for biodiversity and protection of management areas, BIOPAMA, for funding a project titled Digitized Data Collection and Improved Visitor Facilities for Management Effectiveness at a cost of €99,000. Part of this project includes the construction of a new visitor facility,
which will create a really good experience for our clients when they arrive on the Conservancy in terms of the ticketing process, in terms of our clients getting to understand what is available for them to see and to do on Old Pejeta. It will also help us with data collection and management, and basically enhance the overall tourism experience, which is a key platform and a key revenue generator for the Old Pejeta Conservancy and its conservation and community development objectives.
Old Pejeta Conservancy receives on average about 110,000 visitors annually, and we have managed that visitor flow in a very small space at the main gate. So through the IUCN BIOPAMA action component, we are really glad that we will be able, through the construction of a new facility that is coming up, to address all those challenges.
And so the partnership between Opegeta and BIOPAMA comes in handy in the sense that it is making data collection more accurate, data collection speedy, moving from manual data entry to digital data capture and entry, which allows for quicker decisions, which allows for interpretation of what is happening in the field to facilitate management decisions.
What we have is a situation whereby we're getting data on a near real-time basis from the field coming into a central server, which helps us analyze and make decisions from that information. So the approach we've taken is to deploy digital devices into the field. So we have rangers using digital devices, and these devices send data to a central server automatically. So this data then goes into a repository where it's analyzed, and we start getting trends of certain things. For example, we're looking at animal sightings. We can get to know which animal was sighted when. We can start to see gaps of animals that have not been sighted over a certain period of time, and management intervention can be taken to address these gaps.
Once the data is collected on this phone, they have the capability to connect to our servers through Wi-Fi or through the data-enabled SIM cards. This data is transmitted to our servers for collection and analysis.
The exciting part about that is also that SMART is being rolled out across the whole of Laikipia, slowly but surely. So eventually, in the next sort of 1 or 2 years, or possibly even sooner, we will be able to get monthly updates that show the whole Old Pejeta picture, and that will show everything that is seen in the field by our rangers: wildlife movement, wildlife sightings, patrol effort, number of kilometers covered. So it'll be a really useful tool, and it will start to show the true picture of the scale of the conservation effort and the success of the conservation effort in Laikipia going forward.
We really feel quite privileged to partner in this front to make data generation, data collection simplified, more effective, more accurate, to be able to meet our general goal, which is to manage these species in the most scientific way we can.
So that was just a very small insight from one of the grantees. As you saw, in this particular case, they also have a very strong focus on data collection. But most of the grants that we work with in the field are very much around supporting the day-to-day operations in these protected areas, but then also addressing some of their priority needs. So in this case, it was around the visitor center, and then also the digitization of the information that they collect. And that's a little bit how we've dealt with all the action component programs, is really trying to fill a need that's been identified through an assessment of the area to look at what are the priorities to deal with. Oh, there we go. Okay, and so, okay, I have a different slide on my, there we go, okay. And that brings us then also to the point of assessing progress. So it's all good and well to be implementing activities, doing all sorts of things in the field, kind of hoping for the best. But at some point, we also want to know that what we've done has actually improved or at least maintained what we're trying to protect in these areas. And so that's where the Regional Resource Hub has a host of tools available to help areas to assess where they are at in governance, in management effectiveness. And so we have, again, a colleague from the region. Let me just move on. Arthur Tudor from the Western Indian Ocean Marine Sciences Association, who's going to just tell us a little bit about what they are doing with marine protected areas along the Kenyan and Tanzanian coast in using this Imet tool. And I don't know if any of you were at the, there's a number of Imet sessions also at this Congress. There was one this morning, and I think there's another one tomorrow. So if you don't know about the tool, then please look up those sessions as well and have a look. Oh, hang on. Let me go. Yeah.
And our main role is to support marine and coastal management in the Western Indian Ocean region, particularly supporting research that informs management of oceans in the region. Today, I want to talk about management effectiveness of marine protected areas in the region and what WIOMSA is planning to do or is already doing in that regard to support marine protected areas improve their management. So very quickly, a brief background about the region. The Western Indian Ocean region is a region of 10 countries. And within this region, we have 143 marine protected areas that are officially designated. This is according to the recently released report entitled MPA's Outlook of the Western Indian Ocean region. And an interesting thing is that 65% of these marine protected areas were established in the last decade, showing that there's an increase or a growth of marine protected areas in the region. And that's important because then this growth must be matched by effective management for these areas to deliver on their goals. And the report also tells us that 60% of these MPAs are still struggling. They have challenges with management, including a little use of information to make decisions, results of monitoring are not usually used in adaptive management, the challenges with resources and staffing, and many more. And COVID-19 has compounded all these problems. So our strategy now is to sort of do a stock assessment of the status of MPAs currently, and we're going to use Kenya and Tanzania as case studies to look at the problems and the challenges, but using a more advanced method of analysis, which is the Imet, the Integrated Management Effectiveness Tracking Tool that was released recently. The tool is very useful because it's It can help us to do a thorough analysis. But the plan here is to help these countries then develop what we call national action plans for marine protected areas. We intend to do this across the region, but we want to start off with Kenya and Tanzania, and at least 10 marine protected areas that cover about 3,000 square kilometers. And within the next few months, we should be able to have trained the practitioners from these protected areas and conducted assessments in these protected areas, and also help them to develop the national action plans. But also out of this assessment, we also aim to have a transboundary marine protected area management plan, as well as specific site adaptive management plans. We'll help these countries to develop dashboards for their MPAs that they can use for tracking and reporting on the status of the MPAs. Now, this is work that has already been launched, it has started. We're getting support from the BIOPAMA project, and we hope that by the end of the year, we should be able to have developed national plans for marine protected areas for Kenya and Tanzania. Now, this approach will be replicated across the other 8 countries of the region within the next 1 year. Thank you very much for listening to this short presentation, and I wish you all the best with the conference. Asante sana.
Of some of the tools and how they are being used in the region, in this case in particular for marine protected areas, but we also earlier this year did a training on Imet and training what we call Imet Coaches, which are basically facilitators that are then able to support sites to actually conduct an Imet. So there are a number of coaches in the English-speaking countries here as well now. There have been quite a few coaches already in West and Central Africa, in East and Southern Africa, English-speaking. We haven't had that many available yet, but that is picking up now, and this work is also contributing to capacity building around the tool and how to use it and what its uses are for the protected areas. Okay, and then I wanted to now hand over to my 2 colleagues from the Regional Center for Mapping of Resources for Development, RCMRD, who host the Regional Resource Hub, to just explain a little bit about what the offering of the Resource Hub is. So I've spoken about it quite a bit, and obviously all of these other parts are linked to the Regional Resource Hub, which is essentially that, a hub. But they're going to take you through just a very brief overview of what else is there and how you can engage with the Regional Resource Hub. So over to them.
What is Regional Resource Hub?
It is a knowledge hub that supports better decision making for fair and effective management and governance of protected and conserved areas. We do know that our planet is really facing a lot of pressures and threats as far as protected areas is concerned, in the form of pollution, poaching, bushfires, agricultural activities, population growth. And it is through this that the hub tries to compile and analyze the relevant data and provide the necessary information to support field interventions at the various levels, including the local level, the national level, and the regional and also the regional level, with an aim of supporting the decision-making process. The Regional Resource Hub in our region, which is Eastern and Southern Africa, covers 24 countries, starting all the way from Sudan, all the way to the downside of Africa, which is South Africa. We do have 2 levels of actors. The first level is the regional center, who is actually the actual host of the Regional Resource Hub. We support and coordinate the technical elements of the Regional Resource Hub. Then we are really supported by the regional economic communities. We are glad and we are fortunate that our region has 4 regional economic community blocks. That is the East Africa Community, the Southern Africa Development Community, the Indian Ocean Commission, as well as the Intergovernmental Authority on Development. These regional economic community blocks, they play a critical role in defining the specific regional priorities and needs as far as protected and conserved areas is concerned. And ultimately, the countries which the blocks are represented in, they are able to benefit from the Regional Resource Hub. The beneficiaries of the Regional Resource Hub are at 3 levels. We have beneficiaries at the regional level, at the national level, and at the local level. They include various ministries and environmental national agencies that lead in issues to do with biodiversity conservation, protected area agencies, regional organizations, local communities living in and around protected areas, as well as the civil society. The RRH provides tools and services and capacity development activities, and in some cases, we do provide financial actions at the community site level to support specific activities that are supposed to support the communities at the ground. The stakeholders that we do serve at the core most of the at the center most of the pyramid, we do have the target stakeholder, who are the local community, who are supported by the protected area managers. We do have the second level of stakeholders, who are the government and national entities, the scientific community, the academia, as well as the non-governmental organizations. The third tier is comprised of the regional economic communities, as well as the regional host of the Regional Resource Hub. At the outermost lane, we do have the implementing partners, who include the European Commission, the IUCN, the Joint Research Center, as well as the World Conservation Monitoring Center that support in compiling and collecting and even updating the world database on protected areas. And most of the data that we have in the Regional Resource Hub has been linked with the protected planet that is managed by the World Conservation Monitoring Center. The Regional Resource Hub offers about 6 key things. One of the things that they do offer is assessment tools for protected area management and effectiveness, as well as protected area governance and equity. If a conservancy or a protected area would want to assess how well they are doing in this front, there are tools that can be used and they can be utilized from the Regional Resource Hub. We do provide baseline data to inform decision making. We do also have some knowledge products that we share in form of reports, guidelines, and useful case studies, as well as success stories that can be replicated at various levels. We do also offer capacity building in these areas of data analysis, conducting the assessments, and so on. We do also provide the regional reference information system, which is really the engine where the data resides, where the information is analyzed, and it is synthesized in a way in which decision makers can be able to utilize. We do also support issues to do with policy and legislation as far as protected area management effectiveness, as well as governance equity of protected areas concerned. In summary, what the Regional Resource Hub hopes to achieve is to really improve the long-term conservation and sustainable use of natural resources in the Eastern and Southern Africa region. There are 4 key things here. One is capacity development. 2, ensuring that the regional reference information system has the right data and any data gaps are filled. Number 3, to produce the necessary information as well as produce the knowledge products that can be utilized. Number 4, to communicate this information to the decision makers so that eventually the decision that the decision makers are able to make, they are enhanced at both the equity, at the effective management of the protected areas. Thanks.
Picking from where my colleague Ngugi has left, I wish to note that the Regional Resource Hub has detailed country profiles for each of the 24 countries. And when you visit any of the country profiles, you get more information about the protected and conserved areas of the country, including the terrestrial and inland waters, coastal and marine coverage. You can also get more information about the country that is contained in the Regional Reference Information System. And by clicking on the link there, which looks like the button there, it will take you to more protected and conserved areas of that particular country that you have visited. You can also get the information about the protected and conserved areas of that country by coming to these data portals. And these are actually the portals that consist of the information that has been generated by the local institutions. On the right, you can get information about the protected and conserved areas of that particular country from the global perspective. And for example, you can see we have the World Database on Protected Areas, which is a very comprehensive database of protected and conserved areas of countries in the world. So you can even compare between the information you have as a country and the information about that country in the global databases. I wish also to inform that the Regional Resource Hub is working with a very important stakeholder called the TEAMS. And the TEAMS stands for the torchbearer, enthusiastic, available, and motivated individuals. So these are actually individuals who act as data providers and data users, and they give feedback that can help improve the Regional Resource Hub. They also act as champions in the promotion of the Regional Resource Hub in the organizations, their countries, and beyond. And by championing in the promotion of the Regional Resource Hub, we can promote the usage of the tools that we have in the Regional Resource Hub, as well as information that can improve the management of protected and conserved areas. So for those that are attending this World Conservation Congress on site, we urge you to visit the Regional Resource Hub Clinic on Monday, 6th September 2021 for more information about the Regional Resource Hub. Thank you.
Okay, so that was just to give you a little bit of a flavor, a bit of a tour through some of the main activities that we are working on in the Eastern and Southern African region in terms of the cycle of information informing decision-making, etc. But underpinning all of that is capacity building, and that's essentially in both of those main areas of work that you've kind of heard about. The one being more around the data management, data analysis, etc., and the other being around management effectiveness. That also includes sustainable financing, and then also governance and equity. So those are the sort of key areas of capacity building that we focus on in the Eastern Southern African region. And so we've had quite a number of events already. Obviously now with the COVID situation, a lot of that is online. But we've had some really good engagements. One of them was a publication we did last year called Closing the Gap, which was an analysis of the financing gap in protected areas. And so we had a series of webinars related to how to address that gap. And so looking at conservation trust funds, and actually one of the colleagues that contributed is here today. And then we also had one on co-management, etc. So there was a series of webinars. That's the kind of capacity building we do that are more like webinars. At the moment, we are running a governance learning program where we are bringing together governance or stakeholders engaged in governance issues or working in protected areas around this issue, and providing a platform for exchange of information, but also putting it into the global sort of framework of governance and speaking about, what are the major governance issues, etc. So there's a whole host, and I would invite you to just have a look on the website as well to see what is going on. If any of you are interested in getting our newsletter, then just speak to me afterwards as well. But yeah, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but these are the main topics that we deal with in terms of capacity building. And then I just wanted to, this is a placeholder slide, but I wanted to come back to something that Roxana had mentioned right at the beginning, because a lot of this information, you heard also references to the World Database on Protected Areas, etc. The intention of the Regional Resource Hub is to really bring that down onto a regional level and work much more closely with all the countries to make sure that the information that is available through the Resource Hub and feeding into national, regional, and even global discussions is actually as accurate as it can be. And so one of the sort of uses essentially of the work of Biopalma and also the Resource Hub is also feeding into the discussions that are currently ongoing in terms of the post-2020 framework. And then also, and this is another little punt as well, also feeding into the African Protected Areas Congress, which will be held in Kigali in Rwanda next year in March. And the intention, this is the first Congress of its kind in Africa, and the intention here is really for Africa to be discussing what are we wanting to do with our protected areas, and how do we want to manage that? How do we want to work out the governance of our biodiversity and make sure that we are protecting what needs to be protected, but also developing what needs to be developed, etc. So that African Protected Areas Congress is quite a key landmark for all of us, and I would invite you then also, I'm going to just give you a brief overview of what's planned. It's a bit of a similar setup in terms of the types of events as what you're seeing here. There'll be three main streams: protected areas, people, and biodiversity. And then there's a few cross-cutting themes that obviously apply to all of it: governance, resource use conflict, science and technology, climate change, sustainable financing, and also physical infrastructure. So that's just to give you a bit of a snapshot of what that's going to look like, the kinds of topics that will be discussed. And publications like the Stage of Protected and Conserved Areas will be also feeding, or will be a good resource in that kind of discussion as well. And so the most important date for any of you that are interested is the end of September, when the call for proposals closes. So if you are keen to get engaged, be part of the conversation at the Congress, then please make sure you look up the website and you put in your proposal in time. And the other ones are, will flow from that. So yes, I would invite you all to be part of that conversation. It is very much intended to be focused very much on what we in Africa want to be doing, and then resources like Power, actually, I see the colleague is here from West Africa, and then also OFAC, which is the Central African Observatory, and the Regional Resource Hub in Eastern Southern Africa are, how do you say, pieces of the puzzle that can provide good information into these kinds of conversations and allow us to have that conversation based on the information we have locally. Okay, and then I'm going to end here, and I'm going to open the floor for questions if there are any. So I'm just looking around, and I'm looking at Ruchir if there's anything online. I hope that was clear. And then also, just while you're thinking about questions, if you have any, we do have some snacks and drinks for you out on the table on the right. So there isn't an event after this one, so you're very welcome to mingle, stick around, chat to each other, have a snack or something on the way out. Yeah, so any questions? No? Clear as mud. That's great. It's always good to have been clear. Okay, well then thank you very much for coming, and we do encourage you to also keep an eye out for some of the clinic sessions, because we'll be speaking much more intensely about, so as Eric was mentioning, there is a clinic session on the Regional Resource Hub where they'll go into more detail about what's available, and they can explain it, your questions in much more detail. So come along to those, and yeah, come and find me if you have any questions or want to contribute or work with us on any of the topics we discussed today. Thank you very much.